Welcome to Law and Justice. I'm Jane Mulcahy. Today I'm joined by Anne Buckley, and I'm really delighted to have you, Anne. How are things?
Hi, Jane. I'm really good, and thank you very much for inviting me on here.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah, all is well. And yourself?
great, thanks. So, Anne, this is the How to Talk Policy and Influence series, and I'm particularly interested in talking to you about policy around drug use and drug addiction and punishing pain, that type of thing. But before we get into that, maybe you can tell me a bit about yourself, please.
Well, hello, and yes, my name is Anne Buckley. I'm from Fatima Mansions, which is in Rialto, Dublin 8. So I grew up in the 80s and 90s in Fatima, which is an inner city block of flats, a very deprived community. I come from a large family, so there's 8 of us, and my mother comes from who was also reared in Fatima Mansions. They were built in the 50s, I think. She comes from a very large Catholic family, so there was 14 of them. The
Wow.
time when they had lots of children. um, so it was when I was a kid growing up in Fatima Mansions. There was during the early 80s. There was a lot of poverty, so it
Okay.
was very impoverished. So it was when the recession came about there. Um, the types of jobs that I seen as growing up as a kid was, the women worked in St. James's Hospital, so it'd be all cleaning jobs. It was all sewing factory jobs. The men worked in carpentry, construction, um, what else? Yeah, all types of jobs like that. So
Mm.
for me, going to school was huge. I loved reading, writing, music. So there was the arts, anything to do with the arts. But in my community environment, it was all survival.
Right.
So it was just get through to the next day, and all the women were amazing, and it was very impoverished now, but it was more around just getting through the day and surviving. So I didn't feel that my what I was being educated on, and loving to read and write, and wanting better and more, not even better, just exploring my intellect and my
Mm.
education in those areas was wonderful. But in the home environment, it was all survival. So you'd go to
Mm.
school and you'd come home and it'd be, okay, do your homework. But they didn't have any access to nurturing the child's desires for activities, what their interests are, education, because they weren't exposed to that. So
Yeah.
there was a conflict there.
Yeah.
So there wasn't that wasn't there, and then the recession came, so it was severe poverty,
No
severe level of
jobs
poverty,
anymore.
no jobs anymore, and the energy then. So I was like probably 5, 6, 7 going into, yeah. So then the poverty was so severe that yeah, then there was violence, domestic violence increased.
Okay.
My mother and father had a conflicted relationship. My father was always running off other women, and that normal human stuff. They got married way too young.
Yeah.
My mother would work and then she'd have babies and then she couldn't work. So
Yeah.
she'd have very little money coming in to
So
feed us.
stressful.
Yes, yes. And I know the women, my mother suffered it too, domestic violence. Um, I seen we didn't actually see it. I didn't was I could hear it when I was a kid. So there was an energy about in the community and not good, very traumatic, a lot of screaming and shouting. So when you're going to school and it's like you're being screamed and shouted at going to school because they're full of stress. So they're
Yeah.
trying to get food on the table, they're trying to get a normal day and get you to school and get you back. They didn't really understand what was happening to the child's mind. So then school and me taking in information became very difficult. And I remember staring at the board one day and I was like, the words were jumping and it was like I couldn't, something was happening to my brain. And I could hear the teacher telling me to, like, teaching me things, and it was like the senses was being violated. So it was like this, I felt like I was getting a smack of a truck every time somebody raised their voice. So
Oh, right. Okay.
yes.
your nervous system would get a
Yeah.
jolt.
Would go into erratic, so I was always hyper aroused, always.
Right.
So I loved school, but I couldn't take the information in the way I knew internally that my potential had. So
Right, okay.
and in school it's like it's okay. You get the favorite ones, the ones that are doing better than the other. So the
Yeah.
child's mind then becomes very self-punishment.
Right.
You're a bad kid. You're not good. You're not being the teacher giving out to you because this isn't done, and you're not focusing. You're not paying attention.
Yeah.
You're being a class clown because you're acting out, because you're being giggly, which is literally the nervous system is like purging. So you're laughing and joking and you're messing in school. So why wouldn't you? You need to release some stress.
You do.
And you have everybody screaming and shouting at you.
Yeah.
Then you're going home, and then the energy there isn't good. And with my mother like struggling to put food on the table, and her feeling awful about that, and then my father coming in and not treating her very well. So, and then the drugs epidemic came, so which was like another level of energy that we didn't need to be dealing with, but it came, and there was a lot of children that were serious level of abuse. Like you'd see them up on the stairs, sniffing glue, gas canisters, you know, homes that were very like we didn't have much, but it was always clean. We'd always have a bed, and we'd have a clean home. My mother was very disciplined in that way. But then the heroin came about, and that was a whole other level of danger to a child's mind. So now at this stage I'm 13, 14, and it was like you'd come in from school and you'd see adults and young people lying about on the grass, looked like they were dead.
Right. Is that
so
frightening?
Frightening. It was so traumatic. So to your little mind as a child, to my mind, looking at this is the world, this is the adult, this is life, this is what this is where I'm going, this is what I'm growing up into. We don't know any difference.
Yeah.
So the world and life is scary. You don't want to enter it.
Right.
So you're full of pain, your nervous system is erratic, the violence is increasing everywhere. There's a lot
everywhere, right.
Everywhere. There's like human feces on the stairs, there's needles everywhere, there's people coming in. Then you see the Gardaí presence, and that's a whole other level of trauma.
Right.
What we witnessed as children, Gardaí doing to human beings, because they were
their poor treatment of people, is it?
It was so severe as a child, witnessing the Gardaí coming in and smashing into homes and tearing people down, that as a child, as a young teenager, witnessing people taking drugs, was like, they're very sick. They're very sick. They need help, they need love, they need kindness, and a child will understand that on a more deeper level than an adult, because they're trying to fix it. Where a child is very empathic, so they can see. And I saw the Gardaí as very dangerous, very, very dangerous people, and that looked upon communities like mine as a disease. So there was like, oh God, yes. I seen there was some good guards. There was some really good guards that would talk to you and listen to you and ask you how you are, and see the human being beyond the conditioning of the right and wrong, and yous are all, yous don't care, yous don't live right. These types of mindsets. But on a deeper level, it was very traumatic for children. So then we'd like, and then I remember we'd no activities. So there was no, like, they tried their best. We had like a community centre, but that was like, there was no money coming in. There was no money coming in from anywhere. So the community centre and the activities that we would have, little arts projects and things like that, that all stopped as well. So
Okay.
we've nothing to do.
Yeah.
We've nothing to do. Kids were falling out of school. So I wouldn't, there's so much trauma going on in the community. You're being shouted at by your teachers. Why isn't this done? You're not listening. You're being disruptive. So these are all
Abuse kind of heaped on abuse at various system levels as well.
Yes. So the disconnect of the understanding from the education system, and then the disconnect from the environmental factors of where you live and your family unit and what's happening there, and the child, and well, for me, like, the mind just shuts down. So you go into disassociation. So you get into a fairyland.
Right.
So people are talking to you and they're going, for me, like, Anne, and I'd be staring at you, but I couldn't hear you.
In a fog.
In a fog. And you go 3 times, clap their hands. Even my teachers go, Anne, clap their hands. I go, oh yeah, miss, yes, miss. So you go into literally non-existo. It's like you're non-existing, but you're in a fairyland. So for me, I'd be staring out the window in school, up at the clouds. And I did it at home. I did it, I'd sit on the window and I'd stare out the window for hours. And I couldn't hear anything, so I shut it down. So anything that was going on, the adults arguing, screaming, shouting, the outside environment in the community, I couldn't hear it. I shut it out. So I went up into the clouds.
Which of course is a gift in a way. It's an adaptive strategy when you're overwhelmed. Yes.
So then I had another level of trauma. Now I was a sick child as well. So I was born with a ventral septal defect. So I'd 2 holes in my heart. So I'd open heart surgery at the age 11. Which children are given that operation when they're born because it affects your growth and development. So I couldn't really play a lot and do things as I was in the hospital. So which is another serious level of trauma. How they used to treat children in the hospital. They didn't tell you anything. They held you down. They held your arms down, put like to turn your head, force it down, literally like you were strapped. Yeah, so I had trauma everywhere. So the whole life just wasn't, it was like, what do I do here? This is just all pain. This is like just a serious level of abuse. You didn't use those words, but in my mindset, it was like complete nervous system in overdrive, like just all the time, just waiting to be hit, waiting to be hurt, waiting to be treated badly. I wouldn't say I had a proper sleep, no.
Right, okay, yeah. So you'd be going to school tired as well.
Oh, exhausted, falling asleep walking down to school, because our school was like literally 5 minutes away, which was great. I'd be falling asleep walking down the road to school. I wet the bed a lot. Like I wet the bed right up until I was an adult, so I could never sleep at ease. So I was always having nightmares and all the time, but I wouldn't remember them because I learned to switch it off. So I disassociated. It was a mechanism that I used to, obviously, the mind protecting itself from the environmental factors. Then my little brother, he was 8, I was 10. He drowned. He drowned in the canal up at Inchicore, which is literally the kids could play across the road. It was very lovely years though. There was loads of wonderfulness in our community, so much love. Like I mean, I'm blessed to have had the love that I've had, because I know a lot of people in middle class communities, when I share about connection with people and affection, and they're like, we didn't have that type of community. I was like, wow, that's amazing. Like, and I'm grateful to have had that experience from the community that I was reared in. However, when my brother drowned, that was another level of trauma on a deeper level than I even realized had affected me.
Did you talk about it, Anne? Were you supportive?
We didn't. No. The children were not spoken to. No.
He was just there one day and gone the next.
He was there. No, we were told exactly what happened. My mother's very clear and accurate when she talks to her children. always was, and would never allow an adult to talk to them with all fairy language. She'd say, you speak to my children exactly how you're speaking to me, and eye contact. However, on the child's level of the understanding of my brain development at 10 years of age, and the relationship that I had with him, so it was kind of like a mother role as well as a sister. So I perceived that I failed him, and I held that in. Yeah, I failed him, that I wasn't.
Aside from the grief of just losing him, you had guilt then as well.
I had guilt, a little girl with guilt, and a sick little girl as well.
Yeah.
So and then I had my operation, and then I remember going for the surgery, the open heart surgery, and I was like, I was feeling, I'm going to see my brother. I hope, like, if I die, it's going to be great, because I didn't want to live. So at 10, I was wanting not to be here. I didn't want to be here. I was like, and I was at peace with that. I was happy.
Right.
So that's
Which is not the way a 10-year-old should be.
No, that's very, very sad. So I was like in my fairy world, and I was like, I got to see my brother. If I don't wake up, it's going to be wonderful. And then waking up was like, okay, I'm back into this life now. I have to go through this now, and I have to learn how to eat and sleep again, and be again, and I had all that level of recovery to go through, and I had to go home to Fatima Mansions to recover from open heart surgery with all that chaos around me. And my father had left the home then after my brother died, so that relationship with them was completely in a different space than it was before. Part of me was happy. I was like, oh, thank God.
one less stressor in life.
Yeah, just that they weren't together. Not that I wouldn't see my father. I love my father. He loves his children, and my mother loves her children. But that their relationship, their toxic relationship, was over. That was, we were happy. So people think, oh, stay together for children. I promise you, that's not what the child is thinking.
No, I know,
They want you to be happy. They want each parent to be happy.
And they want a bit of peace.
Together, that's fine. Just no peace. Just be my daddy, be my mummy. We're not together, that's fine.
Sometimes it's the best, for sure.
Yes, but it was then I know I'm going back and forth at the ages. So then the middle teenage years, so 15, 16, 17 is coming out about. This is a stage that was severely painful for me. Very, very painful. So I'm becoming a young woman, and how I perceived my life and what it was. So I took care of my mother's children while she worked. So school was falling, and I loved school. I loved school. I loved learning, and it was an escape. It was for me. So school was about me.
Yes.
In the environment I was in, it was about the chaos, and it was about me helping my mother. So then school started failing down, and I was like so mean to myself mentally. So punishment in my own mind. I was like, I'm failing here. This is going. School is going. I'm just going to surrender to being a slave in my mind, where I'm just going to be at home looking after children and my mother's children, and that's it. What's going to happen to me? So now I'm starting to think I'm becoming a young adult.
Yeah.
There's nothing for me. There's absolutely, I've nobody sitting down with me to say, okay, let's see what you're interested in. Here's options. Here's different schools. Here's different things. I had not got one single human being that was looking at that, and the teachers just let you fall out. Primary school was amazing. They were brilliant with us at Basin Lane. Fantastic school. Secondary school, we went over to the secondary school, and it shut down after the junior cert because they weren't getting the numbers in. So this is the early 90s. And in my heart, I was like, oh my God, we were all together since we were age 4. So you have a load of traumatized kids now being separated. Many of them aren't going to go back to do 5th year and 6th year. Many of them didn't even do the junior cert. We got to our junior cert in our main school that we grew up in, and then they dispersed us. They sent us to different schools. So we're together since we're 4 years of age, and extremely traumatized children that have a huge connection with each other. And then you've dispersed them at that age. So there's so much chaos.
Cool.
The heroin epidemic is really rampant at this stage. There's high levels of armed robbery, thieving, guards everywhere. So it was like heaven to go to school. But then the school closed down. And then it's like I was sent to another school where they didn't know us. They hadn't got a connection with us. And I didn't last long there. I was acting out. I was after sticking tile roll in the sink. There was a cleaning lady who there was still alcohol off her, and I despised alcohol and alcoholics because a lot of my mother's
experienced.
Family, yeah, I was like, I don't like her. Oh my God, she shouldn't be doing this. This is the little mind of a young teenager. So the adults that are not behaving in your mind in a position that they can take care of you, you resent them. It's like, you have this anger towards them, and it's because of the effects of the trauma of the chaos, which is very understandable for what they've gone through and what they're going through, but not in the teenager's mind. They need guidance. They need attention on their little development and what's going on, which I didn't have. So then I remember I got suspended for sticking tissue in the toilets, or in the sinks in the toilets, and she said, "You're not to come back here until your mother comes up." And I remember my mother saying, you get into trouble in that school and I'm not going up. I mean it, I'm warning you.
Right.
She'd nobody to help, and my father had legged it away, ran off with other women, didn't have a stable job, didn't look after his family the way he should have. And my mother was left in this position with a lot of grief, a lot of children that she's trying to rear by herself in a community that's going through chaos. So she was working, and she babies to look after. It was too much for her, and I got into trouble, and then I just stayed quiet, and I didn't go back to school, and I started cooking and cleaning and helping my mother. No school, no activities. I barely crossed the door, and I became like I stopped speaking. There's times I stopped eating. I was very, very thin. I was dizzy. I wasn't eating properly. This like I'm a young woman. I'm becoming a young woman.
Yeah.
And
I was just going to ask you there, because you told me before that because you were so afraid of the drugs everywhere, you isolated yourself for a period of time where you just didn't want to go out there. You didn't want to be around your peers for fear of what might happen. How long did you go through that kind of period for, Anne?
I think it was from 14 right up to about 17.
Oh wow, 3 years of isolation.
No, I had a couple of friends, but I wasn't out with them the way I was when I was 12, 13, 14. So they were all actively becoming heroin addicts.
Okay. So this again was a coping style. You were avoiding. It was like flight from your environment to try and keep yourself safe, was it?
Yes. And I became obsessed with loving my brothers and sisters, because in me, I'd failed my brother. So I have to love them. I need 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 to mind them. I need to mind them. So they became everything. But my development, my nurture for my creative outlet in life and what I would love and what I want to do with my life, there was no nurture. There was no development of.
You had no one good adult for you to nurture you.
No. There was no one there. The teachers didn't. They didn't. To me, they didn't care. Not in secondary school.
Yeah, there's a phrase that might sometimes be used. I don't know if it would have been used for the likes of yourself when you were a young girl, about being like hard to reach. You know, that there are these services maybe, and some people don't engage with them. But you also said because you were minding the kids so much, that the services would have helped if they asked you, Anne, what do you need? Yeah. Might you have gone to the youth service if they asked you that?
Yes, if they'd asked me, what do you need? Yeah. So come to me from where I'm at.
Yeah. And what would you have needed?
I'd have needed somebody. You couldn't take me away from my brothers and sisters, and my mother needed help in which way she needed help. So that needed to be addressed.
So like a creche facility or something for them, or childcare.
Yeah, they could be in the childcare and doing an activity while I'd have after school, or not
Right.
after school, proper school in
Yeah.
my community while my
Yeah.
brothers and sisters were there. My mother's in work, and that would have been all nurtured there. So my mother would have loved that. She'd have
Yeah.
been so happy if I'd have got the attention that I need. Because I remember a night sitting there going, and she'd be so sad looking at me,
Right.
because our little heart was broke because she
Yeah.
could see what was happening to me, but she
Right.
didn't know how to help me.
But I remember you saying as well that you always knew you were loved. And I think that's very important
Oh God,
because
yeah.
not everyone knows that.
Yeah, yeah, I was loved. So yeah, I know that. I still am.
Mm.
Like, I've 10 brothers and sisters, and my mother's still the same. She's like,
Yeah.
all our children are adults, and she's like, she's just, our kids are everything to her. The love that she has, and my father has, and all my uncles and aunties, and all of them, and all of the community. It's a very deep love. So your child, if you're in our community, your child wouldn't be just your child, be my child.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
when people talk about neighbors and stuff like that, or loneliness, we didn't understand what that was, because we shared everything we had, and we were really connected to each other. But the level of trauma and pain was so severe, like it really was at deep level, that people didn't understand the effects on their own brain, their
Yeah.
own life, and on the little beings that they were, how to get that in a safe place. So if there was those activities and that after school or school in the community where I am, my little brothers and sisters could be there, my mother could go to work, and everybody could be supported from where their needs are at. You'd be talking, it would be a whole different story, I'd say,
Right.
for me. It'd
Yeah.
be a whole different story, really would. So
But
it's
you have come out the other end. So
now
how
that
did you
journey was, yeah,
how
how
did
did
you
I, well,
find drugs then
yeah, I became a
yourself?
heroin addict at 19.
Okay.
So I went straight in, and I knew, I was like, I had nothing to live for. And the pain of not knowing, I remember I couldn't breathe. I'd always, because of I was like, my life was being completely oppressed. So I'd have like panic attacks. 'Cause I'm like, where do I go? What do I do? Just no, where do I go? There's nothing. There's too much impacting you. So, and heroin became, I took heroin for the first time with my friend. And she was like, it leaves the pain. And it did. I got very sick, and I was like, this is what I'm attaching to now. This is what I'm gonna do. And
Yeah.
this is what I did. And I became consumed by it, and the environment. I resisted it for so long, and I eventually surrendered to it. And that
And
was
it
for
took the pain
17
away, Anne.
years. It did. It did. It took the pain away. And that's the key. That's the key thing. It was an external substance to take away the pain of the feeling of lack of guilt, uh, just so many levels of unworthiness, feeling below the other. That's another thing from communities like mine. We'd always see that we were below. So it's like, well, I did anyway. Um, and all of that was taken away, and you felt
Which must
full.
have been lovely, to be fair, to have that weight lifted, if even for a few minutes. I don't know how long you'd be in that kind of state of painlessness. It
Yes,
must have
and then
been
you'd
good.
get very sick, and then you'd need to get money from drugs, so you start stealing, shoplifting, and doing things like that, get yourself into trouble on that level. So that's where the court system as well, I was exposed to that, which was very frightening
Yeah.
for a very vulnerable young woman.
Yeah.
It's I remember them saying to go into a cool mind program, and it was like, I wasn't ready to be doing that type of a program, because I heard a lot about it and which type of program it was. So it wasn't for me.
Mm.
And eventually I went and spoke to, I became a methadone user. I went onto the clinic there, which was a whole other level of trauma that was on a very deeply rooted level. And to me, it's sickly. It's a sickly way of holding human beings. And them
Methadone.
holding, yes. It's another, because the thing about when you're taking heroin, you're doing it. You're in
There's
control
an
of that. It's like,
agency
okay.
involved.
And it can come out of your body very quickly.
Right.
So you knew you could go through a detox in yourself, which I've seen a lot of people doing. Oh my God, I've never seen human beings trying so hard in all their life. And even my mother used to say to me the same thing. I've never seen a human being putting themselves through so much pain and going straight back out and doing it again. Because I'd get to 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
And of course the addiction was like raging to be fed in me. So I'd withdraw and I'd go back out and I'd buy more drugs. And now I had jobs through that. I worked in the hospital. I followed what the women did, what I seen. I worked in cleaning jobs, hospital jobs, but my potential was like raging at me.
Yeah,
of
course.
Whoa, there's so much your intelligence level, your potential level, and it's like, this is not for you. This is not for you.
You must have had sorry, Anne, you must have had a lot of rage in general, I imagine.
Yes, because my intelligence wasn't being stimulated.
Yeah.
Like my level of intelligence and creativity was not being stimulated. So the gifts I was naturally given to by, you call it God, the universe, the energy of the universe, was not having its nurture. It wasn't. So it was like,
it wasn't being fed. Yeah.
It wasn't being fed. So I was doing what I seen. So inside I knew I deserved more and I could do more. I just didn't know how to, because now I'm a drug addict. I didn't know how to get over this other on top of pain that I'm after causing, to heal all the levels of pain that I'm going through. And then the court system just, wow, it was so much. I just go quiet and let them do whatever they did. So I just go naughty. Yes. So just like literally
dissociate again, almost.
Disassociate, just become numb. Sometimes how they touch you and strip search you was very violating, very demeaning, very inhumane. How they would look at you, and how they would, how they perceived you. The energy from their gaze towards you, over here. Like it's so despicable that you just switch off. So you become a piece of flesh, and your whole dignity within your being, you switch off because you have to. You have to.
That's so interesting. I mean, that is a very vivid description now of institutional trauma, and you
become like that. It's literally a piece of steel, or you've no feelings. There's nothing going in. There's nothing coming out. You become that, and that's to save yourself.
Right.
So you become that. So you shut down completely on another level than disassociation. So you're literally like, here, throw that there. You could do anything to a human being in a court system that is in front of a judge and the guardian and all that sort of stuff. You could tell them anything that is suffering chronic heroin, chronic addiction, and they will just go, yep. Yes, just say that. Yes or no, sir. People admitting to things that they've never done, just so to get through to the routine of, okay, bring me to prison. Please bring me to prison. And sometimes you do things to get arrested just so you be in the back of a police car, so that like you're safe from yourself. Yeah. And people think we're going to put you into a cell and you're going to be kept there for 4 days. Thank you. Inside you're going, oh, thank you.
Yeah,
literally, like the desperation. A break from the chaos. And people think it's sometimes I go in and you hear people laughing and smiling when they're in a prison cell for 4 days.
Yeah.
Because you're in prison, so you have not, you and your mind and what it's doing and the lack of internal connection with yourself has been captured. So it's like,
and trauma is
and
trauma sometimes is described as a kind of prison inside yourself, and you're imprisoned in the past. So what's 4 days in a cell in the scheme of a lifetime, if if you're acting in opposition to your true self as well, and you're just caught in this kind of vortex of chaos and self-harm, but you're desperately trying to numb the pain. In terms, though, of the institutional trauma, say at the hands of the guards, the court system, prosecution, is there something in how people who are addicted humans are then storied, like the stories, the official stories that we tell about them? Are they very hard for people to reconcile themselves with, because there's so much left out? You know, most of the trauma is left out. It's just Anne has stolen X amount of things or whatever, you know, she's on the dole and, you know, is in active addiction for however many years, but they don't really come to the heart of what's going on for people at all, do they, Anne?
No, they're completely separate from they play a role, they have a job, and they talk to each other.
Right.
So we just let them do it. So
right,
people in the courtroom, and we'd look over at each other, and sometimes I'd see different people that are chained, and we'd see that they're really sick and they're unwell. And how we look at each other and smile at each other is we're sharing love. But anyone else, the guards, the solicitors, the barristers, the judge, they're literally playing a role. It's like watching theatre.
But it's theatre of your life. You know, it
is, but we don't take it in, because we are not that. We are not that. So they are doing their thing because they need to feel a purpose in life of whatever they're doing, but it's absolutely nothing to do with us. It's nothing to do with you. Absolutely nothing. Let them go sing a song. But it's nothing to do with me. To me, it was like nothing to do with me until one day. Because what it is like when you're there, it's like guilt. So they want to instill guilt in you for you to reform.
Yeah.
It doesn't work.
No.
That does not work. That's poison.
And why doesn't it work?
Why doesn't guilt work? You think guilt, that's more bodily illnesses. What do you do with guilt? That's a very, that's a conditioning that poisons a human being. Okay, condition me with more guilt. I'm gonna end up on a slab full of cancer and all sorts of illnesses, more bodily illnesses. So I'm gonna drink and take drugs to soothe that toxic conditioning. So that is absolutely not love. That does not help or nurture or empower human beings to take responsibility for their life. It does the opposite. So the court system, treating addiction through the court system, is absolutely pointless. Right. It really is pointless. Now, going into prison, and sometimes you will go to a place where it's like, I'm done. I can't live like this. You'll get a comprehension where you're like, I can't do this. This is what exists. This is where I'm going to keep ending up. Not everybody can get that comprehension at different stages of our life. Some will get it when they're after spending 30, 40 years in prison. You don't need to go that far.
Yeah.
You don't need to spend 34 years in prison. And I mean, how much money would that cost? You keep, you know, the state, taxpayers,
a couple of million for the state.
Come on, like, say, if we want to talk economically, let's save money by nurturing what needs to be there and nurture the human being into feeling that they're worthy, that they're intelligent, they're creative, and what they need can be nurtured. They are not unworthy. You have to get into the roots of these ugly feelings, these thinking and feelings, because they're really rooted in the person. So that needs to be addressed through trauma therapy, but there's also self-compassion is massively important on because there's many things that people go through and they have done to others that can leave them in a level of really like toxicity, and they won't even look at it, because even if you're hurting another, if you're hurting another, that's trauma. So if you are actually hurting another in order to get drugs, you're causing yourself trauma by actually hurting another. for me, I'm lucky. Like, I was a thief, and I had a lot of protection. Like, I had a big family, and I had loads of love, so I'm blessed in many ways. There's a lot of people that come out of the service, or the care service, kids that have been literally thrown from Billy to Jack, home to home to home to home, and never having stability, feeling abandonment, rejection, having that seed deeply in there, and how they interpret that and perceive that I'm not worthy, I'm not to be loved. And that's another level there. So, and just around the ACEs, there's so that's it. To me, that's like a middle class scoring system. There's so many levels of trauma that are not on that.
Yes.
They're not. I'm like, whoa, it's a certain perspective, an academic perspective from a middle class system, I say, because there's deeper levels of trauma there that have not been put down on that system.
Oh,
but
yeah,
I think we know that.
Sure.
It's literally, but I think we know that. It's kind of the idea of what it was, what it is.
It's a
brilliant.
starting point, I think, for having a conversation. But as you described, just from your own background, the poverty, unemployment, lack of hope and opportunity, those are traumas in themselves, you know, or they cause stress.
Yes, and the support for young mothers who have 5 or 6 children, and are on their own with them, and are going. I mean, we've a whole level of bigger problems now. We've homelessness, and we're sending women and children into hotels and hospitals.
I know.
And it's after the trauma that those children and that mother is going through, and the father.
For sure.
But it's just when you said, if somebody came and asked you, what do you need, Anne? There's no right or wrong. You're not a bad kid. You're actually a wonderful kid. You're actually a wonderful kid. Your mother's blessed to have you.
Yeah. Everyone deserves to hear that.
Yeah, that you are a wonderful hearted kid. But I always knew that.
That's lucky.
Well, I did hear it. Some of the women used to say, "Oh God, give us one of her, will you, Anne?"
Yeah.
Because I was always helpful to my mother, because if she was at ease, if she was calm, then I was okay.
You were able to breathe.
Peaceful. I was able to breathe. So she wasn't going to beat the crap out of us, you know. She was not going to, it's like. But I knew where that was coming from. I understood. Yeah, my mother's
as a mother of 2, I can only imagine as well. You know, when she was on her own, highly stressed, struggling to put food on the table, and all these children, very, very difficult indeed.
Yeah.
But one thing that you told me before as well, Anne, and I find I mull it over every now and then, because I think it's very wise and interesting, is that your mom said, never trust someone with a clear head and a full belly. What did she mean by that?
What it was I remember when, and I think of children now, and they're looking at all the homeless situation, and I was in O'Connell Street, and a little girl going, "Mommy, look, he's sad. Why is he sad?" And she's like, "No, come over here." So I was like, what's her little mind thinking? That man that's homeless there in the cold has done something wrong to have himself in the cold and homeless.
Yeah.
So, and I remember I was like saying to was it my mother or my grandmother, "I'm afraid of that man that was a homeless man," or something. She said, "You've no need to be afraid of him." I was like, "But I am." And she said, "Here's what I tell you. Those with the full belly and the supposedly clear minds, I'd be afraid of quicker than those with the empty bellies and the upset minds. Right. All his nature is laid bare for me to see. I don't need to fear him, because everything he's capable of, I can see, because it's laid bare. It's laid bare for me to see. Those with the full bellies and the supposedly clear minds I'd be afraid of quicker. So you have no need fearing vulnerability."
Yeah, and it's
anything
so true.
They're capable of is very, very laid bare for you to see.
It's so really interesting.
It helped me to see, okay, so people are all the same. Like, there's nobody better or worse than. Human nature, we are all capable of. Everything that we judge of the other,
that's true.
It's through our perception. It's what we're perceiving. It's through your mind, and we're capable of it. You're capable of it. I'm capable of it. in that given situation, that human being has had to do what they've done. We're capable of it if we were in that position.
Yeah. It's beautifully wise, really, and compassionate, I think, because in survival mode, it's true, we're primed to survive. So if that means using extreme violence, some of us will do that, you know, or certainly
Every single one
whatever.
of us is capable of it. And
Yeah,
depending on what we've been exposed to, if you've been
yeah,
exposed to massive levels of extreme violence as a child watching that, this is how you are listened to. If you are extremely violent, if you will do that. It's like people are really violent. It's like, oh, there's something that's after hitting them or been said that's after they're after perceiving it as, oh, so it's like a trauma and they react.
mortal
So it's
wound.
reaction. It's coming from the deeper unconscious, the childhood wounds of how whatever their brains were developed into emotionally regulating through. We're looking at it as a right and wrong, which is completely not how we're going to understand it, comprehend it, and help support another human being to move from it, to get them to see. That's not what you are. That's not. None of us are that. It's a reaction through a conditioning, and I mean, every human being is. We're beautiful. We are beautiful beings. There's so much love and so much joy within us to receive and come out. I just think that there's the levels of misunderstanding through the court system around right and wrong and guilt and shame and how we condition people to, which it can understand it in that sense, but it's actually unhealthy to do that. There's a better way.
Yeah. Well, it's also based, isn't it, on a faulty premise that we're always in a rational place as well. I mean, that's what your mother was also saying about the clear mind. To be in a clear mind, you have to be safe. You have to, you know, not be under mortal threat or fighting, you know, to put food on the table, or, you know, not living in a homeless accommodation for months on end. You know, you have to be in a safe place to be rational. And our criminal justice system does presume that people who are taking drugs or selling drugs or whatever, or stealing, that is always a choice. Now, some of the time, of course, it is, but a lot of activity is driven by more, as you say, unconscious impulses.
Yes.
How do you think, though, that the court system could better engage with people, let's say, whose offending behavior is tied to addiction?
Well, it's like to treat it from the biopsychosocial environmental factors. So when you go into a courtroom, you have a solicitor, you have the guard that arrested the person, you have the judge, and you have this whole team of court systems. Can you imagine having a whole team of people that are actually standing there, and you're standing there in the dock, and they're actually going and asking you questions about your childhood, your conditioning, your perception, the understanding of everything that you've done, how you're reacting, all in a whole system where these people are all talking about actually my whole biopsychosocial environmental factors, and I'm going to have them treated.
Yeah.
Do you want them treated? Yes, I can hear that one. I'm taking that one in. I'm not going to be that. Wow. I don't need to be that right now. Okay. Yes. So it's help, it's support of nurturing a human being into a position of responsibility through self-compassion, kindness, nurture, education, housing, feeling worthy to get up every day, that I am important to existence. I am important to existence. I am not guilt. I am not right. I'm not wrong. I'm not bad. I'm not good. I'm important to existence. And I'm needed, loved, and wanted.
Right.
And what can I do? Let's see. I mean, that's when you feel that, when you really feel that. So there's nobody conditioning you to see. I mean, you constantly can see in the court systems, like you see it. You keep feeding that seed of right and wrong and judgment, guilt, conditioning, prison, lock it away. You can continue this for another 100 years. You're still not going to get you're not going to get the best of a human being. You're going to get the worst of them.
And it hasn't helped. It hasn't helped the people who are in prison due to addiction-related thefts or whatever to be shamed and blamed further. You know, as from your own story, there's plenty of shame that you felt without being hauled before the courts.
I was because I was a really good kid. And I loved school. I wasn't a bad kid. I mean, I didn't have underage sex. I never drank alcohol until I was like 20. I mean, I was such a good kid. And people go, really? You mentioned you didn't drink alcohol. I said, nope. It was important to me. I wanted to be a good person, like a good person, and to be, but I needed a purpose for my life to be nurtured. And I was very happy helping my mother in the way she needed help. But just I didn't get what I needed, and she couldn't give it to me. She didn't have the knowledge. She didn't have the access, and she did the best she could. And I'm very grateful to the people and the community that I came from, and the help that they provided with the programs, the local drug and alcohol task force, and all their energy that they did to rise up to help the situation and create the drugs projects. And I'm grateful to them for that. Did I engage in any? Not many. In the end,
you weren't
I did.
Ready. Yeah.
No, in the end, I did. But again, I went completely. I was like, no, it has to be HSA. Part of me didn't trust that either, because I felt that they were judging. So I felt that they wanted to control. So in this part, I was like, no, I need the government. I need I don't need intelligent. I need academic minds that haven't got the trauma that the addictive person has caused the community. Because I felt a part of them had a lot of rage in them, that they were like, let's get this sorted. Now you better listen. We're creating these programs for you. We love you. You needed somebody outside.
Right.
So I was like, oh.
A bit of distance.
And part of me, yes, so that's very valuable. So part of me was like, I need academic intelligence. I don't mean intelligence. Someone that has educated
just
mindset,
a bit of learning, a bit of learned experience or whatever.
Yes, so a psychologist. I don't need a methadone doctor. I do not need that. I need a psychologist. I don't need a psychiatrist. There's no medication going into my body. I have a lot of wisdom around it. It's been in my body since I'm bloody born. I was a sick child. I was a drug addict. I need a psychologist. I need education. I need to know how to access housing. And I have a lot of discipline in my mother's nurture of how to value. Like she used to say to me, I go, I don't like doing that job. It doesn't matter if you're cleaning your own toilet or somebody else's. Do it with pride and gratitude and humility, and then to step into your own power. Like, I mean, there's so much that people don't acknowledge, and from the outside that come into communities like ours, and they look and think that people didn't rear their children right, that they were.
Oh, you switched off your sound.
Yeah.
Oh, you're back again.
Yeah, a perception that was once we thought that people from outside looked down on communities like ours and how the children were reared. And I used to get that feeling from in school, how I'd listen to the teachers talking in the hallway around some of the children and different things, and we'd pick it up, we'd be listening. And how they'd be talking about different children's behaviours and stuff like that. So I was like, they're looking down on us, which is an awful thing to do.
No, it's not nice, for sure. Again, it feeds that unworthiness and the sense of being lesser.
It feeds mistrust of institutional systems. So mistrust of your government, mistrust of your institutional systems and your HSA and all your anything got to do with governmental things. So your first access to that is your teacher. So how your teacher is perceiving you and your family and your parent, your mothering or your mother and father, and how you're being reared. So if that's not done and in compassion, the child will not speak to you. They will not speak to you, and they will not listen to you. And don't you dare speak bad about their parents or anyone in their community. So it must be done through an engagement of compassion, understanding. And we had some good teachers that come down and they do the youth project, and they were afraid of teachers, and they would never allow, and they'd speak to the other teachers if they were speaking badly about some of the parents that were drug addicts, that were going through whatever they were going through. So there was some wonderful there always is wonderful people that
Yeah.
are compassionate and understand and try to educate the others. But again, the court system is not the place to be bringing chronic drug addicts. They cannot hear what you're saying. They'll say noddy. They'll admit to anything, and then it's just you're. It's the court system, the judge, the solicitor. They're just actors. They're doing a role and
Yeah.
they're getting paid a job. But it absolutely has nothing to do with us, and that's how I see it.
So how though do we maybe help people who are in addiction? Not everyone, like you say, you weren't ready necessarily at every point to access help.
Yeah.
How did you know you were ready when you were ready?
I tried to commit suicide.
Oh,
So yeah. I was away from my family and I was living with somebody, and it was very unhealthy in the sense that this person was taking cocaine, which I never did, injecting cocaine, and I was very lonely, and I'd never been away from my family as long, ever, because we were very connected. Like I was always there. I'd run away for a few days, my father would come looking for me. But now I was living with a man and there was nobody coming near me, and not that they weren't, I rejected them
right.
because I went, okay, I'm good now. I have my own house. I'm living with somebody, which then my father kept coming and knocking at the door, and I wouldn't answer the door, and it was like very sad, and because my family never stopped trying.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
was never abandoned, God no. But I shut down, and then I started taking cocaine, and it was a very traumatic experience, and that was for 7 years, and I tried to
Okay.
commit suicide in the end, and I was like, I can't do this anymore, and the chair jerked by chance on the
Oh
third.
goodness.
Yeah, I had a belt around my neck up in the door, and I was hanging, and I had the chair, and I cut my foot
Thank
back on the
goodness.
chair. Yeah, and then the belt fell, and I just realized what I'd been doing. But the thoughts, the suicidal thoughts, the ideation was being fed, and I was looking at the door every day, and I was going, I could do that, and all that pain would be gone. And I wouldn't have to. I haven't got my family anymore. See, somebody somewhere needs to keep in constant contact and feed a loving, nurture, and accepting
Yes.
of the human being that's suffering. And it's literally going to them daily or twice a week and making sure that this one human being actually cares about your existence and wants you here in the world, that you're loved.
Yeah.
And even if you are rejecting them, but that kids need it, vulnerable adults need it, mothers need it. It's especially single mothers and fathers, men don't really
Sure.
speak much. But I just felt that I didn't want to exist anymore. But when I thankfully didn't die, I just got so angry. I was like, I don't deserve this. And I was on the floor screaming from the depths of my heart and soul. And I was like, this rage was come out of me. But within that, this energy started entering me of like
a fight for
strength,
life almost.
a strength. Like, I deserve better than that. I deserve it. And I was like, the reason why I believed I deserved that, I felt it, was because I was a good kid.
Yeah.
I was a good kid. I was a great kid. And I was amazing to my mother and all my brothers and sisters. And I was like, you are amazing. So I had something to feel that I was a good person. I was like, you're an incredible kid. You deserve a life. You deserve it. And that's when I went down to the council. I just tired of going down to clinics, and I was terrified going down to clinics every day and getting methadone. It was like, this is not help. This is not help. This is another prison. Only this is a prison that's out in society, and people look at you in a very despicable way. And you're very weak, and you're very vulnerable because you're taking drugs. Methadone doesn't stop you taking drugs. It's just another drug on top of drugs. And I went down to the counsellor in there. Now, Noreen Mulligan, she died actually. She was amazing. She'd always talk to me. She'd always call me in and she'd say, "You're coming in," and she wouldn't even get into it. We'd just have a chat. But I went to her and I did not tell her I tried to commit suicide in fear of she's going to get a psychiatrist and they're going to try and get me into and give me medication. That's not going to happen. But I talked to her and I just turned around and said, I'd like to go to detox, because she was telling me about different places, because I was asking in a general conversation way. It was little my way of collecting information. And I said, I'd like to go to detox. I'm ready. I'm done. I'm done. I can't do this. I can't live like this anymore. And that's when she got me into a detox in Coondara in Inchicore in the hospital there. And I went there for 7 weeks, which I almost died. I thought coming off of methadone was the worst experience of my life. I stopped breathing. Right. They had to call me back. You have to watch people. Methadone
was that because of your
more
heart
dangerous. Maybe it was. I don't know. For me, coming off of methadone was 100 million times worse than coming off of heroin.
Right.
I really did.
I've heard it's very hard, all right. And coming down from the last of my life, it's very difficult. Yeah.
The worst experience of my life that I will never go through again, ever. It won't happen to me ever again. I can just say that it's the most awful feeling to be on methadone, chronically on methadone. And they wouldn't even allow me to take 20 mils when I started. They said, no, you have to start at 40. I said, I don't need 40.
Yeah.
No, you
so they over-prescribe.
Over-prescribe, then you go up. So they have you. And you're like, right. But they think by having you, they're going to stop you from taking heroin or other drugs. It doesn't. You'll still go out and take more drugs. But they have you in another way. Yeah. I call it the deepest, darkest place of humanity. You've no connection. You're just numb. You're just you're that now all the time.
It's kind of state-induced dissociation.
It's completely induced. You're that, like this bottle, only you cannot switch off from it now. You can't choose when you need to become the tin bottle. This time, the tin bottle has you all the time.
Right.
That's what that's what methadone was for me. And then I went into a Keltai. I found a trauma-informed therapeutic residential centre. I was like, oh, this is my time. This is my time.
Is that in Dublin?
Yes, it's in Keltai. It's called Keltai, which means hidden people in Greek, and it's in the Phoenix Park. Yes, but it's been taken over now for homelessness, so they've dispersed. So the only trauma-informed therapeutic centre we had in the country by the HSC is gone. So it's gone now.
Oh my goodness.
So that was an 8-week program where the life and beings start connecting. Oh, it was amazing, and being listened to on a level of internal, and they teach you everything that they know. So there's nobody like in a position of power. There's no I'm the doctor, I'm the drugs project worker. It's like me and you are one. I am you, you're me, we're human beings, and they teach all what they know about emotional regulation, what conditioning, or like everything, psychology. And then you have your one-to-ones with your trauma informed. So you go in and then they teach you all of it. It's not just like counseling, you can talk forever. So you go in, if I expose a wound, then it's you'll get a self-compassion tool, and they like literally deliver it and teach you how to use it in that moment. So every time that comes up,
to ground yourself and everything.
Because I had IBS and I couldn't go to the toilet properly.
Yeah.
And we got into the wounds. We got into the trauma that was the cause of it. And then what I did was, my therapist teach me a tool. So every time I need to go to the toilet, it's like I was a child when you want to go to the toilet. I was like, I'd rush it. It was mad. And then I'd sit there and I was going, regarding my mother, I don't hate her, I'm just hurt at how she hurt me.
Wow.
And I was starting to go to the toilet properly. I was able to poo properly. I was like, I don't hate her. And I put my hand on my stomach and I could go to the toilet, and I started regulating.
Wow. And the gut is so linked to trauma and shutdown state, which is fascinating. It's like,
I suffered
people don't know this.
My life. Yeah.
And IBS is rife in society, so
what
many
do? We give medication. We give medication for it when it's a wound. It's a trauma. So when you get in there and you work with that, and then you develop your own tool, nothing comes from the other. Nothing from the therapist is their words. They'll deliver. you give it to them, you say it, and then you develop your own tool. So it's all you. So they teach you in Keltide to become your own therapist. So now you know how to develop your own stuff. So when you're going through stuff, you know exactly how to develop a tool of self-compassion, which I went on a whole other journey where I studied so much around different therapies and things that were amazing. Like I self-compassion, I had a whole book that I wrote for a couple of years, all about self-compassion, and I'd gratitude list and all different types of tools that helped me. And I underwent, like, I still engage with Keltai, but only it's not there now, it's by phone. But it's 17 of them were supposed to be rolled out and it's the only one that deals with dual diagnosis.
It's an awful loss, Anne. Shocking, given that trauma-informed care is becoming more generally known in Ireland, that one centre got taken over is very sad indeed. Tell me,
the services, the drugs project services themselves are only being taught what trauma is, what it is, what it isn't. So, and how they treat the service users. Like, it's literally only being talked about now.
I know, which is kind of shocking, given that very few people probably in addiction services don't have some level of trauma.
Yes, so Dr. Gabor Mate is a great one to listen to. Dr. Vessel van der Koff, he's another one. We have Dr. Sharon Lambert. She's amazing.
She's great.
Yeah, so she works with the young people and the drug services and drugs project workers and the Garda and Garda Síochána. So she's delivering programs there about trauma and what it is and how to treat people within the services that come into the Garda Síochána or in the court system and stuff like that. So it is happening, but on the level that we need it needs. I don't know why it's so slow. I really don't. Like, it's like a light bulb. When you have such a gift to go, that's a colour green.
It is amazing.
Sure, the colour green.
Yeah. And I mean, I certainly know for myself, Anne, that it has completely shifted how I would look at people and behaviour and challenging ways of interacting. And even in myself, or people I know, you just
how you are with yourself, your children, how you're seeing how to wear them. I mean, it's medicine for every single one of us. And it's also a reconnection for us to go beyond these class structured systems.
You're dead right.
Middle class, lower class, upper class. Like, that's all, it's the culture that came along with that was so unhealthy. I mean, I don't think we've actually fully realised the impacts of how we structured an economic system and developed a housing system, place people here, place people there, how that would actually come to fruition, and the traumas that it causes, the lack of opportunities, access to education. I mean, my own language, I don't know, Gaelic. I mean, you'd be lucky. You get one kid that got to go to the Gaeltacht, and that's only if they were very good.
Right, yeah.
I mean, that's like
that inequity.
The most basic, foundational thing to enjoy speaking your own language. Kids from my community don't know it.
In terms of influencing policy, what one or two things would you most like to see change?
So decriminalise drugs for personal use, get them out of courtrooms, get rid of the drugs court system.
Okay.
Absolutely bizarre. I'm like, it's embarrassing at this stage.
Right.
They give them vouchers if they do well. Oh God.
Right.
And like, there you're actually a judge sitting there in the black and wigs and gowns, and people that have no connection to that human being that's suffering. They're not educated in trauma and understanding it and comprehending it at a level of treatment. It's not a place for a person that's suffering addiction. The courtroom is not a place. Now, I'm not talking about the crimes that bring them in there. That's one part. However, treating addiction in a courtroom is absolutely bizarre. It's completely. My mindset now, and like, society must really I get it by now. Like it's 40 years here in Ireland. And we're getting worse. And it's not just like poor people's children that take drugs now. We've a massive cocaine problem and benzo problem now, and then prescription medication dispensed by GPs, and
I
GPs
agree.
dispense medication to drug addicts, or not drug addicts, substance misusers, and they're not trained in trauma, and they're giving out methadone and all sorts of different medications. It's bizarre to me that they're allowed to continue, and bringing drug addicts into courtrooms is bizarre at this stage. To think that you will get them to treat their addiction. It's far beyond the addiction is a mechanism. So it's far beyond that. You need to now, like literally that's like a plaster. So it's like, thank your plaster. Now let's
Yeah,
look inside. Be
it keeps
grateful you had
people
your plaster.
alive. Yeah.
Yes. That's
I've
not
heard
the problem. Like everybody looks at the drugs and the addiction being the problem. The addiction is the communicator.
mm,
It's the mechanism. So there's the communicator. What's going on to cause this? So let's get in there. And that's the real medicine. So the addiction is literally, you just get that out of your system. Now we're going to get into the roots of it. So you don't get out of your system, go to prison, come back out, do it again, go to a courtroom. You're literally feeding it. Addiction loves rejection and punishment.
yes.
Loves it. It's honey for it. And
So what if the I know in the States they have some drug treatment courts. I don't know if they operate on the same type of model as the Irish one, but what if the approach were a loving, compassionate approach to the people with
you
the
can't
addiction
bring
problem?
somebody into a courtroom and guards and judges,
You
which
can't,
they probably
okay.
will. No, you're traumatizing them. It's like
Right. So
like
the
standing a
environment.
priest in front of a child that's been abused and saying the
Right.
priest is going to like go talk kindly to you now and compassionate to you. How the drug addicts has gone through the system, especially kids from the caring system, and stood in front of courts and systems like that all their life. Juvenile courts, adult courts, that's all trauma.
Yeah.
That's trauma. So in your courtroom, you're being traumatized.
Yeah. Fair point.
It's set up to traumatize you. It's set up to, like, look at it. It's frightening.
Yeah.
So if you have kids that have been reared in the caring system, has gone through the juvenile courts, gone through the adult court system, and has been in and out of that service, that institution for so long, can you imagine the level of trauma? And now you think by treating it, let's bring them back in and talk compassionately and kindly.
Okay. Yeah.
That's not going to work.
It's an oxymoron kind of thing.
Yeah, the Portuguese model is lovely. They bring them in, they have it's like the biopsychosocial environmental factors are there. So your whole team of people who deal with the young person's individual needs, their nurture needs, their social needs, their environmental needs, their psychological needs, psychiatric needs, their every needs, and the trauma that you've gone through, that's all nurtured, their housing needs. So this is what's needed.
Okay.
So it's like, you don't need that mechanism anymore. I see you. We know, like, you tell me, okay, housing, education, love, self-love. I'm going to teach you. Do you want it? Do you want it? Yes or no? I mean, it's a simple answer when you get into the roots of it. It's like, I can hear you, and to listen to that human being, there's the wounds, this is the cause of it, and show me. That's what was done in Keltai with us. Literally showed our brains, showed us what trauma does, like literally showed us exactly what they were taught in their universities. Like, this is what we know. Here we go. This is what we know. We're not holding it and going, you come to us and talk to us. We're like, this is what we know. Yes. So we were one with the
I know. And that's a key principle, Anne, of trauma-informed care, is the sharing the information and helping people understand themselves and their coping strategies. It's not fair to keep the information just among professionals or among academics.
You won't be trusted. So when you share from your heart, as in like, oh, this is what we know, this is what we've done, this is what we've created. Look, this is what we know. And then show it instead of going, you tell me this, and this is what's wrong, and this is what's right, and this is how we can fix that. Show me. Because when someone did that for me, then nobody's poking in and asking me, what happened in your home? What's this and that? It was literally, this is the brain. This is what addiction does. This is what trauma does. I'm going to show you this. Next one, PowerPoint, then about self-compassion, how chemically self-compassionate dialogue, internal dialogue, language you internally say into yourself and give out, how all your chemicals in your brain react to that, how you get dopamine, serotonin, all the oxytocin, all these chemicals that make you feel loved and what love is. But it showed us, they literally, I was like, there's no way I'm getting around anyone that's going to be like that, because now I know what my brain needs. Now I know what my soul, my spirituality is a huge one. No, I'm not talking about religious. I'm not talking about religious. I'm talking about just so many things out there now that and spirituality is actually within you. You already know. It's to reconnect with it. And it's like,
that's right, the true essence. Do you think so?
Your divinity?
Getting that information on is kind of a massive light bulb for most people, because in a way people know it already, but they don't know that that is the cause of their problems, maybe, or they do, but to have the science say this does actually change everyone's brain if they're exposed to this. It's not you, Anne, it's all of us.
Yes, and there's nothing right or wrong. No guilt, shame is going to fix that. It's actually going to make it worse, because this is what guilt and shame does to your brain development, which goes into your immune system and all goes down into your body. And this is what happens when we bring people into court systems for shaming and guilting them into not being sick. So this is the chemicals of guilt and shame, and this is how they, like, it's literally they showed us. I was like,
it is, it's remarkable. I can only imagine in that circumstance kind of going, this is fantastic news. It's not just me. You know, it is, I am not broken.
No.
This is not just me.
I'm not unique. I'm an individual in the being that I am, but my brain is a human brain, and it's the same as yours.
It
so
needs the same things
it's
to be safe.
Exactly. Like, we know this, but it's like when we look at different people in different ways of how they are in their life and what they've been exposed to, we judge it. And judgment and criticism and right and wrong of it completely blocks us from healing it, from getting the best out of the human being, getting the best out of ourselves. I mean, when I'm saying judgmental things, I could feel that now that I'm so connected to self-compassion and understanding what the chemicals in my brain need for me to feel full, to be able to focus, to be able to concentrate, take information in. Now when I get a judgmental thought, I can feel that in my immune system, and I can feel it. Feel like, it's a judgment. It's like when you're traumatizing yourself, you're traumatizing others. When you're judging yourself, when you're judging others, you're actually, that's your immune system being affected by that. That's the chemical in your brain. So when you come from it from that aspect, and you teach people how they are to be well in the world, what will give them full joy in this life experience through what we are, and showing true kindness and compassion as well, what we are not, and all the judgment and guilt and stuff like that. We didn't know any better. We used it to help us to, you know what I mean, do good in the world. But we have better knowledge now. So it's not to keep your past either. It's not to put a right and wrong on it. It was perfect. It's evolution. We're in a better place now. So let's spread what we know. Let's show people how, teach people how to open up that part of themselves. So your body, mind, and spirit, and heal. I mean, can you imagine the money we'd save? Do you know how much spent in the court systems, for one person?
An obscene amount, and often on the
$90,000
same people
a year.
time and again.
Put people into that, and that's just a common criminal. Some of that isn't even serious level, and they just keep coming around and around and around and around. And I was one of those. So I mean, pointless doing that.
Last question, just on the raising awareness, because you and I know this about neurodevelopment and safety and the importance of all these things. Judges and lawyers don't know about this,
they're busy making money.
Do they need Yeah. I mean, I can't see us disbanding the court system completely or getting rid of the criminal justice system completely. But
No. I mean, for lower level drug addicts, like, I mean, personal use, and I'm not talking about serious level of crime and other, like, I am not talking about that. And there's people
yeah.
out there doing like serious level of criminality and like crime at a level that is like, it's not from just an addiction place. And you got to know when that is and when that isn't the case.
Yeah.
You know, well, the 70% of the court systems are the district court is backed up by people that were just like me.
Right.
You know, purity and innocence that's just been not nurtured in the good place. I don't mean good place. Yeah, look, they're not difficult people to deal with. It's not a like serious level of criminal underworld stuff like the gangland. Most of the people that are in the gangland are vulnerable kids. You know, they're not the top end.
No, of course not. But
and they can be reached if we reach them at the level of the biopsychosocial environmental factors.
Okay.
And you do that with the court system. So keep bringing them into court and bring them around the circle. I told you, and I'll say it again, we don't listen to you. We don't hear you. You're not there. It's I told you, for chronic drug users in the court system, we become like that. So we'll say noddy. If you say you drove a car into the wall, I'll go, okay, I did. Yes, I did. Can I go now into the prison cell and lie down?
Yeah.
Can you get me a doctor? Can I have some food?
Yeah.
That's it. You know?
Yeah.
So when you treat
it's often not like even a punishment.
It can actually be used as another way of putting yourself in another prison.
Yeah.
And it's nice and cozy and it's isolation.
Yeah.
It can be very comfortable. And you can become very happy there.
Yeah.
And that's another way of looking at it. You're safe, so you're not dealing with your stuff. Somebody else is fixing it for you. Because now they have you in prison. You have a bed, you have food, you have water. You can do a little bit of education. You know, you have people coming up to see you. Finally, your family is starting to come up to see you now because like they think you're safe.
Yeah.
But what you do when you come back out? No. When you begin to go in to come out, when you go in and start looking at all the mechanisms and fully understanding and being educated on them, and understanding your brain, understanding your history, your internal history, what keeps you, what will have you well, and that's the education and the nurture and the empowerment need. You're loved, needed, and wanted, and you don't need to be sick to get attention. You know, there's a lot of people that can do that as well. It's another form. It's a mechanism. The addiction is not the problem. That's the communicator. So when you can see beyond that and you teach a human being to see that, because when you're seeing a person, put them into prison, they're going to do well. They come back out and they could do the same thing over again. Not that they want to, by the way.
I know.
I didn't want to. And you'd be like, oh, so nervous. Oh, I hope I don't take drugs again. I hope it doesn't happen to me again. And it comes on. The mindset, the ideation hasn't been treated because you haven't been you haven't opened, or you haven't seen it, and you haven't been nurtured it, and the information hasn't been delivered to you. So what else are you to do? You know, and you don't want to, and it's a fight within yourself. It's like a conflict because you don't want to do this. You don't want to be like this.
Yeah.
You know?
And then there's more pain, shame, and self-punishment heaping on top of it. Every time you fail, I guess, becomes another source of guilt and shame.
Another notch to keep you in it. And the thing with addiction and self-punishment, that's the key to it. It'll keep you in it. It feeds its power. So you have another layer to go through, and it's harder then to look at yourself in the mirror and go, I failed again. I did that and I failed again. So all these failure levels is in your mindset. So you end up just at rock bottom. And sometimes that's not always a bad thing. But then you have to go through all the reasons for you to get up. And where's the reasons? This is bad. Just lie here and die. So I mean, we're losing so many gifted, talented human beings, like really, really gifted beings that have so much creativity to deliver to the world because of this mindset that is not what we are. Like, it really isn't. It's a completely misunderstanding of the human condition, and especially regarding addiction and the energy of it. It's massively misunderstood.
Yeah.
And treated inhumanely.
need and want the people more and tell them so.
Yeah, you're loved, needed, and wanted. And
Yeah,
your
it's a
gift
lovely
and your
phrase.
talent.
Yeah.
And to believe, it's not, oh, you believe in yourself. You got to go in, you got to nurture and you got to look at inside of what the wounds are and how, and to understand them compassionately.
Yeah.
So it's not about putting, this is another thing around the trauma-informed practices, it's around all this abuse. You were abused, you were abandoned, and the words themselves of how the human being that doesn't fully comprehend that there was a right and wrong attached to that by society will go, oh, because nobody wants to, it's to look at it through loving kindness. Through loving kindness. And you just did it earlier on, and you were going, your mother was on her own with all the children, and you know, God bless her. Like, first of all, I was like, you first acknowledged mine, and then you went and acknowledged hers through loving kindness. So there was no like, oh my God, that's terrible. Oh my God, that's awful. That's terrible. That shouldn't have happened. It's not. It's through loving compassion, through everything, to all of our history, to all of what we are, and what we want to become. We won't get there by right and wrong and guilt and shame.
No,
we won't.
No. It's not improved things one bit for humankind, really, all of that approach. So we need something different.
There's
We
no
need
enemy. We need to learn there's no enemy.
Yeah.
You know?
We just need to connect more. And what I do love about really the kind of neurobiology is our essential sameness. You know, we have the same mechanisms, and we do need the exact same things at a basic level to survive and flourish. You know, yes, we have different interests and talents and backgrounds and skin colors and gender orientations and stuff, but
and isn't that wonderful? We don't want the
wonderful.
Be able to enjoy. We get bored easy then if we were all having the same talents and colour skin.
Yeah. But our underlying human mechanism is the same.
They are the same. Oh yeah. Yeah. Massively so.
Anyway, Anne Buckley, you're a revelation, and I'm so glad to have met you at the Cork Life Centre a few years back. You know,
I love that centre because it accepts the kids with all their wounds. Like, there's nothing needing to be hidden, and there's no right and wrong put to it. They're allowed to express it in their way and to be educated in their needs, where their needs are at. So there's no structured, okay, we get this done now. Why aren't that got done? And you know, the kids aren't hiding what's going on in their lives. So for me, it was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
I was
very
so
special
happy to be down there that day.
Yeah. And it's a very loving centre, you know, speaking about loving, needing, wanting people. It has that ethos, and if only every other school had it, and every other service would be better positioned. But Anne, I'll let you get back to your
thing that you can get on and we can get on and do where we can is to spread that.
That's right. That is right.
Yeah.
Share what we know and try and be more loving and compassionate in our own interactions with everyone. It's true.
I always say, I am you, you are me. Like, I mean, what you see of me is what you're seeing in yourself.
Yeah.
All of it. Like, anything you're seeing that could be in me or judging in me is in you. And that gives me like there's no need to be like judging on, oh, be afraid of this is going on here with this person is doing this, because it's my perception. So it's in me. What's in you is in me, and anything I see in you, I see in me, because you're a reflection of me. Yeah, which is beautiful. Indeed, isn't it?
Agree. It is beautiful. It's very Ubuntu, really. I am, because we are, you know, the whole connection and the shared humanity and everything.
Okay.
This has been How to Talk Policy and Influence People with me, Jane Mulcahy, and the wonderful Anne Buckley. Thanks so much for your time, and best of luck.
We need to educate the politicians too.
Oh yeah, we'll try. We'll do our best. Yeah.
And they need to stop making policies around addiction of right and wrong and court systems, because you're completely missing the need to treat and help a person, because we literally switch off. Like, it's at this stage these are just like theater. It's, you're not helping, you're actually feeding the addiction by giving it a crime, because it's not a crime. You cannot punish a human being for like autonomy over how you are need survival will not listen to any type of control of if someone's locked in a room scraping a wall and you tell them to stop and they can't breathe, are they going to stop? You tell them to stop because you're going to threaten them to take this off them or put them this way. They're not. They're going to scrape until they die because they cannot breathe, regardless of what you're saying. And that's the same for addiction. So you can keep making policies of right and wrong, bring them to courtrooms, but they'll still keep scraping the wall until they learn because they can't breathe. So they keep stealing. It's like, that's how I'll put it. They cannot breathe. Do you understand? So you can't hear what you're saying. You can keep screaming and shouting and saying whatever, but it's not helping. Survival, the power of the human survival is what's in motion there. So it doesn't matter what you do to them either.
Yeah,
does
I
not
agree
matter.
with you.
And a human being can take a lot when you're in survival, like anything.
Yes, because we're primed as mammals to survive.
Aren't we amazing? And when I look at people like that, I'm going, wow.
Yeah.
Because I see beyond what someone else is saying. I'm going, wow, that's so amazing, the survival in that human being to survive. And that's the power of our greatness.
We just need to find ways to help people feel safe and thrive rather than.
Yes, we don't need to survive like that. We've gone way beyond it. We don't live in the caves anymore. So, but the power and the strength of a human being to survive is so beautiful. It really is. You know, like, I mean, there's so many suicides out there at the moment. So sometimes I look and go, addiction is like the survival mechanism.
It
So
is.
and
it keeps people alive
in the right way. Yes. So
instead of doing that,
thank you. Yes. And I say thank you to mine. I say thank you. Because I've
say
gone
thank
beyond.
you too, because you're here, you know. So and you have your great insights and wisdom to share, and your heart and your soul, and it's a beautiful thing.
Wonderful to chat to you. I love talking to you. We could talk forever.
You too. I'll end the interview now. So
yes.
And thank you so much for talking to me on how to talk policy and influence people. It's been a pleasure as always.
Thank you, Jane, for inviting me on, and it was wonderful to talk with you regarding this issue, which is deeply in my heart. Thank you very much.